Hi everyone, welcome to our new series that we will be starting. Be'ezrat Hashem, Masechet Pesachim. Hopefully we can maybe finish the Masechet by the time Pesach comes around. So let's begin Be'ezrat Hashem, B'siyat Dishmai, with the help of God. We start with Or. So the Masechet starts with the word Or. Or la'abasar. Very interesting start of Masechet. That Masechet would start with the word light. So interestingly, sneak peek, spoiler alert, there's going to be a discussion, an argument about the word all. What does it mean, day or night? All literally means light, but is this all talking about day or night? So let's start, let's begin. We're in the Mishnah, Masechet Pesachim, Daf Bet Amud Aleph. Or la'abasar bod kinit chametz l'or haner. On the 14th, or at the light of the 14th. So we're not sure what all is. The all of the 14th. We check for chametz with the light of a candle. We check with a candle, like we do today. Any place where we don't have to check, any place where we don't have chametz going inside, we don't have to check. As in, we don't have to check for chametz. For those who don't know what chametz is leavened bread. So let's say matzah is unleavened bread. So matzah is made very quick so that the bread has no time to rise. And so there are many different kinds of matzah. There's Sfaradi matzah, Ashkenazi matzah, Temani matzah, different types of matzah, but it's anything that hasn't risen. So there's no rising. You put the water to flour, you roll it out, you put some holes, you put it in the oven, and everything is not risen. If I'm not mistaken, it's 18 minutes. Leavened bread, chametz, is bread. It's, let's say, pretzels. What else? Sourdough. Anything that has risen. It has enough time to rise. What else is chametz? Donuts. What else is chametz? Crackers. Right? Anything where the water and flour has sit together and it's been longer than 18 minutes and it's been in the oven for a long time or it's been in a bowl for a long time, it rises and becomes chametz. But in Masechet Pesachim it discusses what is chametz and what different ramifications are. But here in the Mishnah it says any place where you don't bring chametz into your house or you don't bring chametz into your room. Let's say there's a room in your house. According to this Mishnah, only this first opinion, this is not the Maskana, this is not Halacha. This is just the Mishnah and Gemara. So when we learn Gemara, we want to make sure we're staying away from Halacha. Are we learning Mishnah? Or are we learning Halacha? We're learning Gemara. We're learning Mishnah and Gemara. So that's not Halacha right now. So we're learning about the Gemara and the back and forth of the Gemara. So any place where you didn't bring chametz into the room, you don't have to check. That's the first statement of the Mishnah. So there's a case where it talks about a wine cellar where you have to check 2 rows in the wine cellar for chametz. So when is there a case where you have to check the 2 rows of a wine cellar? A place where you have to check for chametz. Bet Shammai says 2 rows on the entire side. Only the 2 outer ones, which are the 2 upper ones. So we're going to see Rashi for the Mishnah. Or la'abasar gal sinan. This is how we say it. Le'or haner. Rashi says, it'll explain. B'Gemara mefaresh ta'ama. We're going to explain why there has to be a candle on Daf Zayin Amud Bet. Now we're in Rashi. Dvar ha'matchil bodkin shelo ya'avor alav beval yireh uval yimatzeh. A person has to check for chametz. Why? Because it says in the Torah, a person shouldn't see with his eyes, shouldn't see chametz or find chametz in any of his property. So why do we check? To make sure that we don't see or find chametz in any of your property. And it's an avirat to see or find chametz according to Rashi. Shelo ya'avor alav. He shouldn't have a case, or he shouldn't have the avira where he passes through and he's able to see or find chametz. And so when is there a case of about the 2 rows in the wine cellar, which is a case in the Mishnah further on in the Masechet? Shtei shurot, 2 rows. So Rashi is going to explain this case. Shtei shurot, what is 2 rows? Shel chaviot hasdurot b'maltef shel yain. In a wine cellar, I don't have a wine cellar, but what I'm imagining is a wine cellar is like an underground room where there's a certain temperature, if I'm correct, and they have rows of barrels of wine throughout the entire room. You have to check between the barrels. After we said in the Mishnah just said any place you didn't bring chametz into it, You don't have to check. So why do we have to check a wine cellar? You have chametz in a wine cellar? Wine is not chametz. We drink wine on Pesach, right? We have to check chametz for Pesach, but wine is not chametz. So why are we checking this wine cellar? So it explains in the Mishnah, Lo amru, we only said it in a case, in a case where we bring chametz into the wine cellar. What's a case where you bring chametz into the wine cellar? Okay, go on. For example, martef shemistapek mimenu yain lishulchano. You have a wine cellar where you don't have enough wine on the table. So you go into the wine cellar. So what's the case? Let's say it's Purim. Purim's coming up soon, relatively soon. So let's say you run out of wine. Back in the day, they used to have wine cellars. So you want to go into the wine cellar, but you have a piece of bread with you. You just had a seudah. You have bread in your pockets maybe, or you're carrying bread around. So this is the shamash, the person serving everyone. He's carrying around the piece of bread. He sees that they were out of wine on the table. He goes into the wine cellar. The bread is with him. So there's chametz in the wine cellar. That's why you have to check. That's the case Rashi says. So Bet Shammai, that's his opinion, that 2 rows in the entire wine cellar. And we're going to explain on Daf Chet Amud Bet of what that means. And also about Bet Hillel. That's the Mishnah with Rashi. I want to look at Tosfot for now. So let's see Tosfot. The light of the 14th, we check for chametz. Perusha Kuntrus, Tosfot quotes Rashi, and he says, that a person shouldn't do the avera of seeing or finding chametz in his home. And this is tough for the ri. What does he say? Why? What's the question? But we already have this idea of nullification on the day of Pesach. First we do checking, which is the night of the 14th, which is the night of Erev Pesach. Right? The night of Erev Pesach. We have the Seder night. The night before that is the night of Erev Pesach. That's when we check for chametz. The day after we do bitul, and then we do bi'ur. And then, so some people say we also do bitul when we find the chametz. But we have bitul. So now, we're going to raise the question right now. It says in the Gemara, habodek, in this Masechet, it says in Daf Vav Amud Bet, habodek tzarich shivatel, person who checks has to do bitul. Umidoraita bebitul ba'al masagi. And according to the Torah, when you do bitul, that's it. You're good. You're covered. So now, Tosfot's question is, why would you need to check? You just did nullification. You have to check now for chametz. If you're okay with nullification, why do you need an extra step of b'dika? So what's the answer? So it looks like the question for the Ri is the afal gav desagi bitul be'alma. Even though it's okay for him to do bitul, nullification of the chametz, hichmiru chachamim. The chachamim were stringent. Livdok chametz ulvar'o, to check chametz, and he adds the word ulvar'o and to burn it. Why? Shelo yavo le'achlo. And so you won't come to eat it on Pesach. On Pesach, you see, let's say you have Cheerios on the counter, and you didn't see it when you were cleaning for Pesach, and now it's Pesach. You see the Cheerios, which is chametz, or you see a bagel or a donut or something that's leavened, any chametz, and you forget it's Pesach, you come, grab it, and you eat it. You just ate chametz on Pesach. Asur. You can't do that. So why do you have to do bitul? Why do you have to do nullification? Why do you have to check and burn? To make sure that you don't eat chametz on Pesach. That's the stringency that comes from the chachamim. That's why it also says in Daf Yud Amud Bet, the Rava Kika b'shmei Korah, in the section where Rava talks about on Daf Yud Amud Bet, or Dilma, or maybe, so we have a different answer. Zimnin de nafal va'ati lemichle, maybe it fell and you came to eat it. I have a haga'ah here. Just check what it is. Okay, no. Okay. So the Tosfot goes on to ask different questions, like why is the isur of bidika chametz, like what's the isur of chametz? Because it's not all year round, it's not like other isurin on hana'ah, where you maybe like a nazir who can't drink wine or cut his hair. It's different levels of pleasure that comes from that. So chametz is very unique. So I just want to stop there. So now we see that machloket ben Rashi le Tosfot. Rashi says we have to make sure we check for chametz, so you don't be over val yireh v'bal yimatzeh. But according to Tosfot, the Torah says you don't have to do bdika. You can do bitul. That's enough. So why do we have to do bdika and biul? So to make sure that it gets destroyed, so we don't see it. Not only that, we don't eat it on Pesach. So to make sure the Chachamim, the sages, were stringent that we don't come to eat it on Pesach. So that's the reason why we have to do bdika and bitul and bi'ul. So now I want to take you to the Mea Shiloach on this Mishnah. Very interesting Mea Shiloach, who was a rabbi in Eastern Europe. So let's read this. So he starts Masechet Pesachim Bet Amud Aleph Ola Abasa Botin et Chametz Lo Aneh Kol Makom Shemachnisim Bo V'Chulu Ma'im Shtei Shurot V'Chulu Makom Shemachnisim Bo Chametz. So we just talked about the wine cellar, the 2 rows in the wine cellar, Ben Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. So he's going to take a twist, a Hasidic twist. What does Hasidut say about this? Hine Inyan Bdikat Chametz, the idea of checking for Chametz, Moreh she'adam tzarich levarer ulenakot atzmo mikol sig upsolet. Cleaning for chametz is not just physical, it's also spiritual. It's also something within. It's something, what are you checking for in yourself to clean yourself, to make sure you don't have any psolet, anything, any of those klipot, the shells and the husks over the kernels, that you don't have it. You want to make sure you get rid of it. Get rid of those klipot. Anything that you have to do with yourself or your selfish desires, you have to try to get rid of it. That's why it says in the Mishnah. How does it start? Or what does it say? A place where you know there was chametz, a place where you know they brought in chametz, you have to check. What does this mean if we're talking about spiritual terms? A place where you didn't bring in the chametz, you don't have to check. What does it mean? If the person knows, who's the only person who knows you? Well, who's the only 2 people? You and Hashem, you and the Creator. There's 2 people in the entire universe who know about your inner thoughts. So if you know about yourself that you're clean, let's say you don't have any weird lustful desires, or you don't have a super desire for food or sleep. So you know you're clean. You don't have to check yourself. A person knows his own soul. But then the Mishnah asks, but what about the people? What about the case of the wine cellar? Why do you have to check there? So what is the answer? So the spiritual answer of what is a wine cellar? A wine cellar is talking about a Talmid Chacham. Why does a Talmid Chacham, why does a scholar, a Torah scholar, why does he need to check himself? He's a Talmid Chacham, why should he check himself? There's no reason to check himself. He's important. He learns Torah. He does everything. If you can look on the other video, Introduction to Talmud Esel Sfirot Part 3, you understand that it's not just about learning Torah. It's your echut. It's the quality of the learning Torah. Even though he's doing for the right reasons, what was his mindset? Where is his level of emunah? Where is his desire? Check his machshava while he's doing these ma'asim. The ma'asim is very important. Do mitzvah, learn Torah. But what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about, wow, I'm so impressive. I can learn this and I can memorize it. Or are you thinking about, I want this to be to strengthen my emunah in Hashem. I want this to be rak lishma. So he has to check himself to make sure he's clean. So what areas of the spiritual life do you have to check? So now we have the Mishnah, the Machloket, Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai omrim shtei shurot al pnei kol latef, Bet Hillel omrim shtei shurot hachitzonos shel enlightening. So there's an argument between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. What are these 2 rows? So according to spiritual terms, what are these 2 rows? What are these 2 rows of wine barrels? Shtei shurot, these 2 rows, romzin al shni luchot. The 2 luchot, the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments were given on the 2 luchot, the 2 lists, the literal translation, luach, maybe like a calendar, a list. The 2 luchot Avrit, shenitnu shtei shurot shel 5 ב-5. There were 2 rows, 5 and 5, which is 10, Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments, or the 10 utterances. ובזה אמרו בית שמאי שתי שורות על פני כל מלטף, הנו שצריך לבדוק בכל 10 הדיברות אם הוא נקי. So according to Bet Shammai, you have to check the entire wine cellar of 2 rows. What does that mean? You have to check the entire shtei luchot, the entire aseret adibrot, the entire 10 utterances. Are you clean in every section? Anochi Hashem, lo tirtzach, kabed avicha v'et imecha. All of them, all 10. Bet Hillel says, no, it's just the two upper ones. The two outer ones, which are the upper ones. So now there's an argument on Bet Hillel's view between two opinions. So one argued it's the top one and the one that's within it. And one argued the top one and the one right below it. So if we look at the Luchot HaBrit, we look at Anochi Hashem is the first, we know that. But is it the one right below, or is it the one across? Anochi Hashem is first. What's right below it? Anochi Hashem and Lo Yelecha. So Anochi Hashem, which is I am Hashem your God. Lo Yelecha, there should not be other gods that you have. And the across, when you go across from Anochi Hashem, across the two tablets, you have Anochi Hashem and Lo Tirtzach. So now there's an argument. Are you supposed to do Anochi Hashem, I am your Hashem your God, and do not murder? Or I am Hashem your God and do not have other gods. That's the argument. The one who says it's Anochi Hashem, I am Hashem your God, and the one who says I am Hashem your God and do not murder, what is he talking about? What is Anochi Hashem? How are you supposed to check yourself or really understand where you're sinning, or how to check your machshava in this mitzvah of I am Hashem your God? That your divrei Torah, your learning of Torah, this lecture, last night's lecture of the Parshat HaShavua, make sure it's always in your heart. Are you always thinking about the Torah that you just learned? When you go from work and you go back home, or you go from your house and you go to work, or you go from the restaurant on a bus to work and then back from work to home, and wherever you are. Let's say anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. Miami, Israel, California, New York, Brazil. The Torah should always be in your heart. That's Anochi Hashem. That's I am Hashem your God. Are you keeping the Torah with you? In your mind, in your heart at all times. Velo tirtzach. So what about the other part of the opinion? Do not murder. This is something special. You shouldn't think about doing evil to your friend. When you look at your friend, are you thinking, I wonder how I can prank him. I wonder how I can make him lose. I wonder how I can take his money. I wonder how I can make sure everyone laughs at him. What are you thinking about when you talk to your friend? I mean, it's supposed to be your friend. So are you acting like a friend? What are you thinking about? It's not out loud, bilvavecha, in your heart. That's lo tirtzach. Because we know that it says a person should not embarrass. If whoever embarrasses his friend, it's as if he killed him. What are you doing with your friend? How are you interacting with other people? So it's not just you and God. It's not just you and the Torah. It's you and other people around you. And if he knows that these two, he's clean, he has nothing to worry about in these two areas, he's clean in the entire Torah if he knows that these two are good. There are 3 points that this person is supposed to hold. It says in Zohar Shemot, Daf Resh Amud Aleph. What is it? He has to love Hashem, he has to love the nation of Israel, and he has to love himself. It's not just you and God. It's not just you and it's not just God. It's the people around you. It's your brothers and sisters of the nation of Israel. This opinion, Lo Tirtzach and Anochi Hashem, you and God and you and the people around you, that's Shmuel. That's the opinion of Shmuel. Rav says, Anochi v'lo yelecha. Anochi and the one below it, which is you should not have other gods. We know already Anochi Hashem is keeping the Torah in your heart. How are you supposed to keep lo yelecha? What is lo yelecha? You shouldn't have other gods. What, I'm worshipping idols? I'm bowing down to stones? What's lo yelecha? Meir Shiloach says, Hainu shelo yelecha adam achar na'at gufo. He shouldn't go after his lustful desires, the pleasures of his body. Sleeping too much, sleeping in, sleeping till 10:30, eating too much, taking an extra piece of cake, taking a piece of cake at all. He shouldn't chase these desires. He shouldn't give his body too much pleasure. It's about the soul. We're focused on the soul in this spiritual work. And again, I don't want to lose this point. It's good to think about these things, but don't forget the maaseh is very important. We're in the olam asiyah. We're in the world of action. We want to make sure that everything we have to do. We can't just think. We have to do. We have to do action. But when we do action, what are we thinking? So according to Rav, that's the way to go. Make sure you have Anochi Hashem and Lo Yelecha, which is, it seems like it's just a relationship between you and Hashem. What about the other people? So that's why the end of the Dvar Torah, Me'er Shloch says, Ve'hilchata kavate de Shmuel. The halacha goes after Shmuel. How are you behaving between you and people? It's not just you and God in this world. It's you and the people around you. Your friends, your family, your siblings, your brothers, your sisters, your kids, your husband, your wife, your in-laws, everyone. Every person in the nation of Israel. Everyone. Everyone. How are you relating to them? How are you acting with them? It's not just you and God in this world. It's you and other people. So I just wanted to start with this from Masechet Pesachim. Hopefully we'll get to the ideas and the definitions and the argument between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda about what is Or LaAbasa. What does it mean, the light of Al-Basar? Is it nighttime or is it daytime? When do you check? So that'll be next time. Thank you so much for joining.